Good evening, everyone. It's Thursday, July 14th, 2016, and I'm Mike Witch.
And I'm Rebecca Paganini. Welcome to another episode of The Local Live. Noise complaints create tension among Village of Mamaroneck residents.
Former Democratic Committee Chairman Stuart Teichert seeks a trustee seat in Mamaroneck Village.
Leader of Preserve Larchmont, Sarah Bauer, gives us an exclusive interview after Larchmont's development moratorium is extended.
The new Pokemon Go game gets lots of attention on Mamaroneck streets.
What is the future of Playland Pool? Find out about this and other neighborhood news in our In the Media segment.
And on this week's Roundtable, Mamaroneck residents share their thoughts on the recent violence in Dallas, Baton Rouge, St. Paul, and Orlando.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.
The Local Live production team extends condolences to the families, friends, and communities affected by the violence in Orlando, the shooting of Alton Sterling in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Philandro Castile in St. Paul, Minnesota, as well as the recent killing of Dallas police officers Brent Thompson, Patrick Zamaripa, Michael Kroll, Lauren Ahrens, and Michael Smith. Residents will speak out on tonight's roundtable. And there will be a candlelight vigil for the Dallas police officers at the Village Courthouse in Mamaroneck at 8 p.m. this Friday night.
And now our top local stories. Ralph's Ices, the Italian ice and ice cream store that opened at 946 East Boston Post Road on April 29th, has quickly become a Mamaroneck favorite, with never-ending lines and no open parking spots. Residents in the neighborhood complained at the July 11th Village of Mamaroneck Board of Trustees meeting, asking for it to be shut down due to loud noise, traffic congestion, and fast swerving cars.
We've expressed our concerns with the village about the safety of this lot in May. We worry about our children and the children of others who walk this lot that are in danger. Nothing has been done. You can see as you sit on my neighbor's deck that the lot is unequipped to hold the amount of patrons that come each night.
The owner of Ralph's, Scott Rosen, responded by suggesting solutions to solve parking and garbage cleanup. He argued that the neighborhood has thrown many unfair obstacles his way.
The harassment that's coming my way is absolutely ridiculous. I'm tired of it. I've been nice. You asked for something, I've done it. And you guys come up with ridiculous things.
Mamaroneck trustees heard more noise complaints, this time over Mamaroneck Avenue restaurants and cabaret licenses for outdoor seating and live music.
There should be no music outside at all. I think it belongs inside. I think that the kind of people that you're trying to bring in, proving alone just by virtue of what you're building and all the units that are in the pipeline coming, it's very high end.
You want to impact my quality of life so I can't sleep? Impact his quality of life that he can't sleep? Or anyone else who lives in the neighborhood? This is what you're doing with this law.
The board passed 3 resolutions pertaining to cabaret licenses and noise, regulating outdoor seating as well as live music played outside those restaurants. The board set a maximum loudness level from noon to 10 p.m. Live music at restaurants with cabaret licenses is now limited to 75 decibels. That's louder than normal conversation, but below the level of the average dishwashing machine. Trustees also raised fines and, for the first year, decided to end both Mamaroneck summer block parties at 10 p.m. sharp.
Also in the Village of Mamaroneck, former Democratic Chairman Stuart Teichert collected the minimum of 288 signatures to enter the Democratic race for a Board of Trustees position. A long-standing member of the Mamaroneck community and advocate for zoning laws, he will be in the race along with candidates Victor Kafur, Keith Waits, and incumbent Leon Potok. All are hopefuls in the general election this November.
Leader of Preserve Larchmont, Sarah Bauer, lives behind the 120-year-old house located at 40 Ocean Avenue in Larchmont. After she learned about the plan to demolish the house and subdivide that property for 4 new homes, she fought successfully to put a stop to it. The Larchmont Board has now extended its original development moratorium, allowing more time to prepare resolutions regulating zoning and future land use applications. Bauer explains to The Local Live the purpose of Preserve Larchmont.
Our goal now is to sort of help fill in the blanks with our consultant and say, okay, well, here were the recommendations, relating to the bulky houses. This is what we think it should look like in Larchmont. And so that way it gives the village a lot more to work with, so they're not just sort of having to create all this on their own. We are through our website, preservelarchmont.org. If you go to the website, there's a big donation button, and we use 100% of those funds for our attorney and our consultant to help guide us through this process.
Reaching #1 on the Apple App Store with nearly 7.5 million downloads, Nintendo's new app, Pokemon Go, has taken Mamaroneck by storm. Nintendo's stock, which dropped significantly in the period before the game's release, is now up over 25%. However, law enforcement warn about the dangers of getting robbed while using the app, and critics complain about faulty servers and excessive data usage. To discover what the appeal of Pokemon Go is, we spoke to some local fans of the app.
I think it's just the fact that it's like when you hold your camera up against the image, you see the Pokemon there, and it's like it's actually there in real life. I think I play it every day for my daily workout.
So growing up, I played with the trading card game. So from there, when it released, I was like, oh, this is awesome, Pokemon. Like, I grew up with the first 150 Pokemon. So me and my friends, we just went out and just started playing. I mean, it's pretty fun because we go out on beautiful days like this, catching Pokemon by the water, by the grass. So it just brings everyone together.
And now here's James Levinson with what's trending in the media.
Larchmont housing policies may be affected. A federal judge in White Plains ordered the government to hire a consultant to comply with a housing discrimination lawsuit. Larchmont is one of the neighborhoods that was recommended to the Justice Department in May for being sued for having zoning laws that, quote, could result in liability. To find out the full story, check out The Daily Voice. Looking for a new way to increase your flexibility in the outdoors this summer? Owner Toby Kundid of Mamaroneck's Tovami Yoga has partnered with the Westchester Parks Foundation and Whole Foods Market Westchester on a series of free classes entitled Sunset Yoga in the Parks. You can find out more info about the class on The Daily Voice. The public county pool at Playland may be no more. The Rye Playground swimming pool is in serious need for repairs, but County Executive Rob Astorino wants to spend $2.76 million to convert it into a dining patio. This will eliminate the only county pool for Sound Shore residents. To read the full story, check out the Journal News. It's mosquito season in the Hudson Valley. The recent stretch of hot and humid weather across the area have left it prime for mosquito breeding sites. And with reports that the Hudson Valley is within the possible range of the Zika virus, here are some tips to help prevent mosquitoes breeding on your property. Check your property for any items that can hold water. Even a tiny plastic cup filled with water can produce mosquitoes. You should also use an outdoor flying insect spray where mosquitoes rest. Mosquitoes typically rest in dark, humid areas like under patio furniture. And if you have a septic tank, repair cracks and gaps to prevent infestation. For more tips, check out The Patch. And finally, Metro North tickets will soon be available on your phone. Governor Cuomo announced Tuesday that by the end of the summer, there will be free mobile app that will allow the customers to pay for their Metro North and Long Island Railroad train tickets on their phones. To find out all the details, check out The Loop. From the internet to you, I'm James Levinson with In the Media.
Up next, we have our local trivia question, and stay tuned for tonight's roundtable. Join the conversation where our guests, all local residents, will share their views on the horrific recent acts of violence in our country.
Gun killings in Dallas, St. Paul, Baton Rouge, and Orlando have everyone asking what is going on in our country. And when or how will this violence end? Well, we mourn with the families of the 5 police officers murdered in Dallas: Brent Thompson, Patrick Zamarripa, Michael Kroll, Lauren Aherns, and Michael Smith. Our sympathies go out to the families of Alton Sterling, killed in Baton Rouge, and Philandro Castile, killed in St. Paul, Minnesota. And likewise, our compassion embraces the families of the 49 victims in Orlando, Florida. And in a sense, we mourn for our country too. What can we do in our communities, in ourselves, to help end this crusade of violence?
As always, we want to hear from you. What do you believe is going on? What can we do to fix it? And ask questions of our guests. You can call, email, or tweet. The contact information is on your screen.
Joining us tonight are 5 community residents, some young, some older, all with ideas and opinions. So with us tonight are Greta Maneker, a rising senior at Mamaroneck High School, Kevin Duarte, a new school undergraduate and a Mamaroneck High School grad, Mike Rivers, a longtime community resident, Mary Lee Berridge, a leader of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Interfaith Council, and Lee Stringer, an author and a longtime Mamaroneck resident. Welcome all of you, and it's a tough topic tonight. So I'm going to start with you, Greta.
Okay.
You are the youngest. What are you worried? And if so, what are you worried about?
I don't think I'm really worried. Like, I'm not worried when I go to school. I'm not worried when I go to a movie theater or anything like that. But I think only within the past few weeks, over these 3 recent killings, the Philandro Castile, Alton Sterling, and then the Dallas officers, I think those have been the ones that made me the most scared. I think since Orlando, I've been a little bit more scared than usual. But I know we have lockdown drills and stuff like that, so I'm not really worried when I go somewhere.
Okay. What about you, Kevin?
I think I'll just summarize it with this. Today, as I was actually on the phone with a friend of mine, telling him I'm going to be on TV for the first time, because I'm used to being behind the camera. So we were talking about it, and he tells me, "How are you getting there?" And at that point, I hadn't quite figured out, am I going to drive? Am I going to take a taxi? Decisions. And my friend tells me, well, if you drive, make sure you use your blinkers. Don't forget that. And I laughed at first because I said, you're morbid and you're funny. But then I thought about it for a second and I said, no, that's happened, hasn't it? I can't say that it's weird because it's not like I'm worried. It's more of a constant. I'm always looking out. If you're ever in the car with me, you'll see I don't play music. I'm always looking. My windows are usually even a little bit cracked down because I'm always listening. I'm always alert. I don't know, living in a constant state of, is everything okay? Am I okay? Do I, when I see a police officer or a car, maybe it's bad, that my first instinct isn't to feel safe. My first instinct is, oh, am I speeding? Am I being careful? Am I using my blink? That's always what I've.
And it wasn't like that before?
Oh no, it's always been like that. No, it's always been like that. It's just that now we have, it's just not that, now we have this attention to these issues, and now there's actually been, how do I put, maybe media coverage that I think maybe people are starting to see it. But in terms of me, I'm not any more or less worried. I've always been this way.
What about you, Mike?
I think it depends. If I'm out of my community, sometimes I'm a little more cautious than if I was in Mamaroneck or Larchmont. I work in West Harrison, so I drive on the Hutch to get to work, and county cops are there all the time, and I'll leisurely drive to work. But in my town, I might go a little faster, but I don't really worry about it too much. It's once I get outside and I know that the cop that pulls me over might not know who I am because we didn't go to high school together, or he's not my friend's dad or uncle or something like that. That's when I tend to really worry about, all right, what's gonna happen.
Is that different from you and some of your friends? Is there a reason that worries you as opposed to somebody else?
I mean, what we see on television tells you that I should be worried and I should be afraid, compared to my friends that I went to Mamaroneck High School with. My best friend is white, and he got pulled over leaving my house one night, and the cop was just like, all right, whatever, But I wonder if in that same instance would it have been as easy for me, And he even joked and sent me a text, hashtag white privilege.
I will say, as the mother of white boys, not necessarily. He got lucky.
Yeah, but that's the joke that's there. Hashtag white privilege, and I was like, all right, yeah, you got me on that one. It sting a little bit, But it's just the perception of what's going on now. And I think in my community, I'm fine.
But outside the community.
But outside the community, it's a whole different ballgame.
What do you think, Mary Lee?
Well, certainly on a personal level, I've never been a worrier, although when I did work in the Bronx, I think I had moments because I think the police, I got stopped a few times because I was a suburban lady, and that was, they wanted to catch me on a yellow light or something. But as far as the degree of anxiety, I feel it enormously for so many in the nation, never mind locally. And one point I could make about this, we have a wonderful local group called The Summit, and we have had meetings on community issues, and we've had the youth police officers, and they have been remarkable guys in terms of the kind of rapport they have with the teenagers and the reassurance they can give, whether it's my age group or others. The community is what we all want, the reassurance, including the teenagers, clearly. And these men are wonderful in the kind of extra time, effort that the local police force, I think both Mamaroneck and Larchmont have youth officers, and they're just remarkable young men. So I would give that a great plus, and I'd say one more thing about the most recent happenings. Back to the interfaith efforts. I had a call from a friend who we've asked to belong to the Martin Luther King group, which we have here in Larchmont. This will be our 30th year. We'll be doing it. I think you know something about this. She had been asked to join our group. She had been hesitant because she's a busy woman. She called me today to say she had heard a sermon at church where she felt they said, pray, but do something. And so she wants to join the Martin Luther King group. To me, that was the most I could bring at the moment. I was so touched by that.
And you, Lee?
Well, for me, as far as the recent events making me more apprehensive and more fearful, I'd say not really me, because I've had the good fortune to have had, many years ago, had a gun stuck in my face.
The good fortune?
Yes, because I'll tell you why it's good fortune is because we're talking about fear. And you don't really fear what is. You fear what's around the corner, what's going to happen. Once it happens, something comes out of you that you didn't even know you had. So to see that come out of you earlier in life gives you a little more confidence and less fear as you walk through the rest of your life. But, and for me anyway, listen, I'm at the point where I'm no longer walking into the room, I'm on my way out anyway, so if there's any fear, it's for the next generation. And fear in terms of what kind of world are we growing up in? I mean, it's, you know, to have this as a normal, everyday thing as you're a developing person, that's not a wonderful way to life to look forward to. And I worry about that.
So why do you think, I'm going to start with you, Lee, on this. Mm-hmm. Why do you think it's gotten worse?
I have definite opinion on why it's gotten worse, and I think we're at the bottom rung of a class war, where if you look at our politics, it's I haven't want to keep it against the rest of the world, and the rhetoric that flies when we go to elect our leaders is pure class war.
So class war as opposed to race war.
Well, but see,
I know sometimes they overlap.
Wait, they're playing out a class war. There's a class war that's being played out against various kinds of fault lines: race, culture, ethnicity, or lifestyle. It's played, and because there are more people who are more have-nots than there are haves, and the more divided we are, the easier we are to control and conquer. And I think people are falling for that. Like it's there's a reason you have to say Black Lives Matter, but the real statement is lives matter. And how do we get to lives matter? Because until we get there, we're still going to be fighting each other.
Now, I'm going to digress for a moment, because if you look on Facebook, a lot of people are offended by Lives Matter as opposed to Black Lives Matter. I don't know if any of you feel that way. And you've come out and put it on the table as what matters. I want to know how you reconcile that, and I'd like to know how all you feel about that.
I think the people who object to it are people who are at a point in their lives where they have to find identity by grouping with someone. I'm so old I don't care anymore. You know, and that's another advantage, and that advantage is I'm identifying with something. I'm identifying with the human race. And when I do that, the great thing is it lets me be anything I am without any restrictions or reflections. So it's broadening, and it also frees me up to be who I am.
And if you want to weigh in on that?
I saw something online, or just on Twitter mostly, that I think is very applicable to that same statement, which is that, all lives matter is true and important, but the important thing is that right now, the ones who are most in danger are Black lives. So we have to put more attention on saying that Black lives matter at this point so that we're all equal, so that all lives will matter. First, we have to pay attention to the fact that right now, Black lives don't.
And go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get at, is that because we see all the hashtags, we see Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, but the fact of the matter to think about, when you say hashtag Black Lives Matter, you're trying to put that on the forefront. You're trying to have a voice. You're trying, as a person of color, to come on top, to come out on top, to try to claim your rights as a human being, right? You see that other people have these rights, well, you should as well. And then all of a sudden comes along, no, you're wrong. It's not all. It's all lives matter. Everyone's equal. Why do you think you're special, right? And so that's, to me, that rhetoric of all lives matter or Blue Lives Matter, the sad truth is that it's true. Blue Lives Matter, right? Yeah. I mean, we hear about the Dallas shooting, even if you Google the word Obama this week at least, you don't even have to press enter. The suggestion says Obama Dallas. We already expect him to kind of do something about it, right? Because Blue Lives Matter. But then if you do the same Google search for, say, Sandra Bland, you'll get something like, oh, it's 1 year since her death, or a vigil held for Sandra Bland. And it's like, okay, remembering Sandra Bland is important, but she's gone. Someone lost a sister, a mother, and that just gets buried. They don't have that support system that Dallas Police Department has. Mm-hmm. Those 5 officers, it's tragic. No one deserves to die, but they have a support system all over the country. People, prayers in our hearts and our thoughts are with you, as they should be. But then when it comes to people like Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, no, he deserved it. He was drawing a weapon. He was doing this. So that's where it gets buried.
It's also the police, they have a voice as a way that maybe certain minority groups don't, and the way they address that. Do you think that also contributes to the effect that certain people sort of have a way they'll look at the police differently for how they respect them as compared to just any other group in, say, any other capacity?
Yes, I think that when you talk about, there's 2 things at play here. There's reality and there's perception. The reality is that Blue Lives Matter and that all lives don't matter, Black lives don't matter. That is the reality. The perception then is that some cops are bad, or a lot of cops are bad, or some people are bad, and a lot of people are bad. And it becomes frustrating on both ends, because as a person of color, again, with my turn signal story, right? I see, remember to use your blinker or you might get shot. I wish I could say that sounds ridiculous, but it's happened. We have seen it happen, right? And regardless whether or not it was justified, it's happened. So I can't feel safe that way. But on the other hand, we also have, the police department and officers who come forward and I've talked to them or been, in their presence, and they'll say, no, this is frustrating because I have to give my life. I'm putting my life on the line every day, and this is like an honor to be a police officer, and you don't appreciate me. But when I was young, and I'm not the only one that has experienced this, my parents taught me, be very careful about the way you speak to officers because they have a gun and you don't. Okay. So there's the possibility that I may not come home. Right. Officers don't have to have that conversation with their children.
Yeah, so we have a question coming in from Twitter, and this is going to diverge from the topic a little bit, but the question will go, what do you see as the effect of Donald Trump, who has come out as a ban on Muslim terrorism, And do you think it's actually an effective way for counterterrorism? So anybody can chime in here to begin. Yes, Marley.
I feel very strongly about this. I have several Muslim friends. One, a young student from Kabul, actually Afghanistan, who's just desperately sort of the Malala of my acquaintance. The degree that these people are being threatened, and to have Donald Trump come out and comment about all Muslims, all Syrians. We've just had a huge furniture drive to help with Syrian refugees, though there isn't a good organization in Westchester County, which is really a shame. But basically, for the Muslim group, I would just like to mention for them, that kind of thing, Donald Trump and what he has done, and I have to tell you, from my sense of it, the kind of racist, call it undertones if you wish, to me, they're huge overtones in what this man has brought, and it is an appalling situation that we have, that the media and haven't tuned into this as strongly as they might have earlier. Now, some are trying. Some of our great historians who've written great books, McCullough has come out against him. This is a very worrisome time from my point of view, and he is so pro-gun.
I'd like to actually come back to something Kevin said, but I'm going to direct it to Mike and Lee, actually, about the guns. The police have guns and you don't. As I understand the facts as we know them, in the Philando Castile case, he did have a gun legally and identified as such, whereas Alton Sterling, from the reports, he was believed to have been committing a crime, and police were called. Do you distinguish between those two situations?
I think there's a big difference between the two. The little bit of video that I got from the Alton Sterling case, from what I saw was, you don't see the cops initially in the video, but you see Alton turn around and put his hands up, like towards them, as opposed to say like, what do you want? What did I do? And then he's tackled into a car. Now, I get it. He's a very large man, and it clearly took 2 officers to pin him down. Even if he has a gun or not, and it's said that he did have a gun, but if you watch the video closely, especially when the second video came out from the other angle, you can literally see that one cop is sitting on his arm while the other cop is straddling him, pinning his other arm down to the ground under the car. So even if he is able to have a gun, the angle at which the gun would go off would go nowhere near the officers. And the cop that's sitting over him on his hand, it's point blank center mass. It's a death shot. It only takes 1, and he took 2. You know, if you have a man pinned down that way, it's easily, you can shoot him in the leg, you can shoot him in the arm. He's going to be in pain. He's not going to try to, shoot again, especially if you shoot the hand, the arm that has the gun.
Yes.
He's disarmed at that point. The Philando Castile case, I think the officer was just nervous, plain as day.
And the officer, I believe, was Hispanic, is that right? The officer who shot him.
Right. But that's irrelevant in my opinion. It's a cop versus a civilian at that point.
So it's not white cops against people of color.
I don't think it's always that case. I don't think that's always the case. If I have a plethora of friends that are police officers all throughout the county, even in this town here, that I call a friend first, then I call them a cop, and that's because they don't let the uniform define who they are. They define the uniform, and that's where I think there's a transition that's lost. People get the uniform on, and they get this sense of power, and it's like it gets to their head. It's like, no, you're from the community. People know who you are. Use the uniform. Don't let it use you.
It's also the police seem to also have, when you see these incidents occur, the problem is that maybe that they don't occur because incidents happen like that, but they're rarely ever punished for it as well. And there's that attitude.
And here's my thing with that. If you're, I train an NYPD detective in the city, and she and I got into a deep conversation about this recently. And the one thing that she kept saying was, she's proud that she took that oath. She's proud to be an officer, and I respect her cold-heartedly. But I think when you become an officer, you need to be held to a higher standard.
Yes. Yes.
Because you were there to protect and serve the civilians. And I think people are seeing that they're not being held to that standard. You know?
Well, here's what a police officer, I'm sorry, Lou, but here's what a police officer has said to me, that when you stop a car, for example, you have no idea who's inside. The person in the car knows that it's a police officer who has a gun, but the police officer has no idea who and what is in the car.
They have ways to protect themselves against that. And that is how they approach the car, what angles and what they command. They're very well trained to approach a car and not get shot. In fact, one of the videos I saw where a black man got shot, it was in the South, was because the police officer did not follow any of these rules. The guy was sitting in a truck in a gas station. The cruiser came in and pulled up parallel with him. Now, you're supposed to approach from behind at an angle so no one with a gun inside can get a bead on you. That's the first thing he does wrong. And then and the cabin's open in the truck, and he tells the guy, "Let me see your license." When the guy reaches for his license, he shoots him because he doesn't know what he's reaching for. This is pure lack of training that ends up with, because there's a lot of confrontation between cops and people of color, and inordinately, if your lack of training will end up killing a black person.
But doesn't
the
the
second thing I'd
concealed
like to
carry?
point out real quickly is that these days, there's no more community policing. The police are an occupying force, like an army, and they get increasingly militaristic. And there's a difference between an army and a police force, and that difference is being washed away.
Are you pointing to Dallas and the RoboCop?
Well, that can be a symptom of it, but I think it's all over maybe not here locally, but in your major cities, there's a very militaristic approach to police.
It's a lack of communication too between the civilians and the cops.
Right, that's the thing.
That's occupying force.
There's no bridge between the community and the police anymore. You know, there was a time where like the cops would play basketball with the kids at the park. You know, they play football with the kids at the park. They would be at the harbor watching softball games. But that's not there anymore. Like they've separated themselves in communities. Like, I don't go there, I'm not from there. You know, that's how, I mean, it's not in Mamaroneck. I don't
think
feel
that
that's
isn't, Mamaroneck
but
really
I feel that's what a lot of communities are doing. You have these officers that know nothing about the community. You put them there, they're not trained to be in that community. That community is completely different. That's a different environment than they've ever been in before. You know, I think some police officers are being completely undertrained. They're not. I have a friend who's a cop. He's like, I spent more time at the shooting range than I did learning how to deal with people at a conversational level. So,
But
you're
some
being trained to
cities are
shoot
working
somebody.
on that. Some cities have really made an effort.
Like
and
Dallas.
Dallas, tremendous.
Well, yeah, no, and
Commissioner Brown is one incredible man.
And that was one of the biggest things, is that like it was so upsetting to see that this was in Dallas, because Dallas has had a very good track record in terms of police violence so far. You know, like they had been working in the community, and then they got targeted because someone was upset with police officers in general.
Yes.
Someone was allowed to keep a gun who was not very mentally stable.
Actually, just before we go on, we have another Twitter question from your former co-host, Mike Witch. Probably you like him, right? No more than me. He actually asked something that you were touching on before. So have you felt in Mamaroneck, to anybody here, a sense of like the same feeling you were feeling when you go out to other communities, that there is like a distrust between the police and any one of the citizens before?
I don't think it's as overbearing in Mamaroneck.
It had been much worse. Remember, there was a lawsuit for the Hispanic day laborers. That was a very big thing. But they've really worked on this, and I think the great majority of everything I hear now, the police we're in a much better place.
So do you think that this kind of police shooting or shooting of police could happen here in Larchmont, Mamaroneck, Rhinebeck, because we've got to bring everything home?
Nothing's impossible. You know, but I don't expect it, because it's not that kind of high-profile contact. It's a lot of drunk driving, speeding, It's not a lot of gunmen, you know, where the pistol's going to be out. Although, I do think, for instance, I had an incident with somebody who I couldn't get out of my house, and rather than create a scene myself, I went to the police, and you know, they were sort of the guy who came to help me said, well, if he does anything wrong, I'm going to tase him. Like he was all ready to, he just wanted to use his taser. That made me a little nervous, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they have tasers because it would be.
But they're not using the tasers.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
But well, in this case, we're talking
the first
locally.
thing they reach for is their gun.
Yeah, but I'm talking locally.
Well, that was not the case in the Baton Rouge. They did use the taser first, supposedly.
Yeah. You know, but
I wasn't there.
Right, and that's the whole thing. It's they're looking at video evidence, and based on video evidence, I can make up whatever I want before the video kicks in. You know, I think people are getting lost in the idea of like you see all these cases and like nobody's being held accountable for anything, and until somebody's held accountable, it's only going to escalate. People will start taking action, into their own hands. And we've seen it. It started to happen already. It happened in NYP in the city last year.
Yeah.
There was 2 officers sitting in their car.
That's right.
It's going to continue to happen until somebody's held accountable. And the person or the persons who need to make people accountable, it has to start with the local politics. It has to start with the mayor, and then it has to start with the governor. They have to step in and be like, all right, well, there's something wrong in our community, or there's something wrong with our police force that we need to step in and start making people accountable.
So what should we all here be doing to try to make that happen?
I don't know what, I mean, this is a giant problem. This is a giant issue, a giant thing, whatever you'd like to call it. But, so I don't know that there's anything I can do even at the individual level. But when there are people in power that can do things, and we talk about, well, not all cops are bad, right? Not all cops shoot people. You know what? That's true. We have a lot of good cops, a lot of honorable cops, a lot of cops that bring honor to their uniform. And I actually want to talk about Memphis for a minute. I don't know if you guys, anyone here has heard of, I believe he's the interim deputy director, I believe. Michael Rawlings is his name. He's not in the news, nowhere. There was a Black Lives Matter protest, I believe, in Memphis. And I don't exactly know the details because, again, this isn't in the mass media like that Dallas thing was, right? And basically what happened was you had hundreds of people marching with the Black Lives Matter movement, and they shut down a highway, I believe I-45, I don't remember. They shut down a highway, and you have all these protesters, Black Lives Matter, you have cars, you have civilians, and you had officers. And Michael Rawlings steps in, and he actually walks off the bridge with the protesters, and he walks them off. And that is what we need, I think. We need the good cops to come forward, call it out, and take that kind of action. I think.
It's funny. I was having a conversation last night with an older friend of mine. He was in the military, and I have a huge military family. And I said to him last night, I said, I know there's good cops out there. I know several of them. But what we need is, if somebody's always going to say, oh, but there's good cops, well, I want that good cop to step up and call out that bad cop.
Exactly.
And the one thing he brought to my attention, which I have to give him respect for his statement, because he brought it to me from a military standpoint. Once you become a cop, you're in a brotherhood. And it's almost, taboo to oust your brother or oust your sister who fights beside you. Because if you're the one who stands against them, now everybody else in the force is looking at you like, oh, can I trust him?
Yes.
And that's where that double-edged sword is. And that's bad for the police, and I feel bad for them for that. And when he told me, I had to take a step back for a second.
That's part. I'm sorry.
But it's hard. It's very hard, and I understand.
That's part of the militarization of it. It's like they're taking a military concept and bringing it to a civilian situation when you're interacting with human, people who aren't other soldiers.
Do you think
But
any
also,
of this has to do with...
they're isolated. It's another big thing. Is cops hang out with cops all the time, and that's got to stop.
Do you think any of this has to do with people having guns?
Yes.
People other than police.
Yes.
Access to guns.
Yeah, I think the other thing I would say as well, talking about guns and talking about the police force, is that I'm white, first of all, and I'm also young, but when I walk down the street, there's no way that if a cop drives by me that I'm going to feel afraid, because like it's not going to happen where I'm going to feel afraid or scared for my life, or that they're going to hurt me.
You might feel better even. I mean,
I mean, not necessarily like, oh, like the world is so scary, the cops need to protect me, but I don't have that feeling where like, you know, I have to be worried about if they'll believe me. I mean, it's a different thing when it comes to sexual assault and rape, because then, you know, the police aren't going to believe me and they'll ask what I'm wearing. But
we are actually running out of time, but I want to ask you guys one last question, which is that you may or may not know there's a vigil tomorrow night in the village of Mamaroneck for the Dallas police officers. Yes. How do you feel about that? Do you have a feeling one way or another?
I'm perfectly fine with it.
I think it's a wonderful thing. We've had vigils before with things have come up.
The biggest thing that's getting lost is right and wrong is wrong.
Yes.
And that's what nobody wants. That's where the whole accountability thing comes into play. You know, if somebody's been shot, all right, as an officer, you're being held to a higher standard. You need to prove without reasonable doubt that this person was going to do harm to you. You know, that's what I want to see. That's where I you know, if there's the slightest inclination that that person might have had made that jump towards you or something, then I will defend you. I will absolutely defend you. But if you can't prove that, then you need to be held accountable, because you are being trained to handle situations. Yeah. You know, and
we are way over time, but I want to end on that right is right and wrong is wrong, because I liked how that was said. And I want to thank you for joining us. James, thank you for co-hosting with me tonight. And viewers, thank you for joining us as well. Stay tuned though. We'll be back with the answer to the trivia question and more community stories in a moment. We've gone on forever. We went so far over.
Looking for your child to have a great summer? Sign them up for LMC TV's Team Filmmaking Workshop. Young people 12 and up have an opportunity to film, star, and direct in their own movies. Check out last year's participants. Don't let your teen miss out on a fun, productive summer. Sign them up today. LMC TV, your community connection.
Gracie is a gray, short-haired tabby kitten. According to her foster family, she's very playful, affectionate, and smart. She's just arrived back to the shelter, but she's in great family environment cat and looking for a forever home. She's up to date on her vaccinations and housebroken. For more information on Gracie, or just to browse other adorable pets, visit www.humanesocietyofwestchester.org.
We've got some very special guests in our studio tonight. Mike, would you like to do the introductions?
I'd love to, Rebecca. These students, and there are 20 of them, just a few brave enough to appear on camera right now, they're from La Plata, Argentina, a city about 1 hour south of Buenos Aires. And they're here at Iona College, and they've come to visit LMC TV and watch us making the local live.
And what are you guys studying at Iona?
We are taking classes at a mass communication camp. We are studying broadcasting, social networking, media, advertising, journalism, and all that stuff.
Awesome, interesting. And what are your first impressions of New York and your first college campus here? What do you think?
Well, it's all like the movies. The campus is really beautiful. This is my first time here, and I know it's really awesome here. I love being here, and I'm looking forward to see Manhattan. And I don't know, I want to see everything. The Empire State, the Rockefeller Center, I don't know. I want to see everything.
Awesome, well, welcome.
And I should say I'm one of their workshop teachers. That's how we arranged this. And thank you, Tadeo, and thank you, Juan and Rebecca.
Well, remember, if you'd like to keep us on the air, please support us by checking out our website at www.lmctv.org and click on the donate button in the upper right. We really appreciate any contribution.
We're always welcoming new interns and volunteers, so send your email to locallive@lmctv.org and join us. We'd love to hear from you, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Michael Widge.
And I'm Rebecca Paganini. See you next week for another episode of The Local Live.
Go. Slow. Whoa.
Can the local live give my pet ostrich the power of human speech?
What?